Hello, everybody. By this time, you probably heard of the news from Germany that from now on, like from actually January 1st, German men now gotta inform the German government. Uh, German men now, fighting age German men now has to inform the government if they are planning to leave the country for more than 3 months, which just gives a hint that they are planning to start a drafting process, right? Um, Today's reaction video is not about military stuff or political stuff. It's mostly about the how German government views native German men, right? Because you all know that not only German but in general European government treated the native people like shit, right? And especially Germany, but not only Germany. Just for the record, right? All the European countries. But today we're gonna be talking about Germany. So German government put the problems of German women at the main focus, and put the problems of migrants, and they basically treated migrants uh, like natives, right? They treated migrants like natives, and they only cared about the migrants, and migrants acted like the real owners of Germany. And the same way with the German women. Um, Basically, the German government cared about the German women and migrants. That's it. Nobody cared about German men, right? Nobody cared about in Germany. German government. Can you imagine? German government didn't care, and now it still doesn't care. But still, right? Nobody cared about German men. German government only cared about German women and migrants, and that's it. If you compare the money uh, that they give to migrants to average German salary, right, or anything, basically, you can understand that the uh, it's unfair. It's unfair. Like German government been given money to migrants all along for the past, I don't know, 15 years, and they treated migrants like they were the owners of the country, right? They only cared about German women, they cared about the migrants, but at the same time, they didn't care about the German men, which is bonkers, man. Um, I know I might sound like angry. I'm not German, by the way. I am. I have nothing to do with Germany. I've never been to Germany, but I feel like it's this unfair. This is unfair, and um, if I was German, I would have left Germany a long time ago. But let's get into the video. Today I'm gonna be reacting to the video called "A War is Coming to Germany. You need approval to leave." Yeah, let's get into it. Let's dive into it.
Once again,
But by the way, this video is from Chris Consulting 4013.
some very interesting changes and new introductions almost invisibly sneaked in on the 1st of January 2026, and no one really noticed, no public big attentions, no big announcements. But yet, after the 1st or from the 1st of January 2026,
Well, this is pretty much. I didn't know about this. It's been like a couple of hours. Today is April 5th, right? April 5th, 2026. I didn't know that the law is active, right? I didn't know that it's starting January 1st, 2026. January 1st, 2026, and nobody had a conversation about it, right? I found out about it like a couple of hours ago. But all right, whatever.
of men here in Germany can no longer just leave the country freely. Not for work, not for study, not for vacation or for a longer trip. Now you need.
Hold on a second. Well, well, I thought that they gotta inform, just informing it, but turns out that the young men are no longer allowed to leave without. Man, can you? I thought that you can get away with just inform the government and that's it, right? But you actually need a permission. Like, man, I don't think that many German men can have a permission, right? It by default they will, most of it will not even have a permission. Most of regardless of that, even if you inform them, you have almost zero chance of getting a permission. Young men are no longer allowed to leave Germany without permission. Amendments to the Military Service Modernization Act came into force largely unnoticed. Obviously unnoticed because I found out about it a couple of hours ago. So accordingly, millions of men must obtain a permit. It says obtain a permit, right? But we all know that most of German men will not have a permission. We just know for the fact, all right, from, I don't know, Bundeswehr before longer stays abroad.
Need to have approval from the military, and they can just deny it. If blaming it on Russia, on Ukraine, on whoever, on Iran, saying, nope, you can't leave now if you are between 18 and 45 years old.
From 17 years old. Yeah, I've read that starting the age of 17.
Let that sink in. Imagine you want to study one semester abroad, you have a new job in London, or you just plan on doing some backpacking through Asia. You now just cannot decide and do so freely. You need pre-approval and authorization from our
Again, most of German men will not have approval from government. Most government usually say that they need approval, right? You need to apply. You need to go to government's website and file documents. And we all know they make the whole process complicated. Even if you follow the process, you most likely will never have approval.
career center of the military now. And no big headlines, no national debate.
Nobody noticed new conscription rule for men who want to go abroad for an extended period of time.
No public big announcement. It was quietly embedded into modernization law. And
because they know for the fact that all that bullshit talk about gender equality it been a fucking bullshit all along. Whenever there is a new law that will be controversial or spike a you could say disagreement or you could say that some terrible reaction from citizens, they always try to sneak in some fucking bills, sneak in some laws, new laws, some bills. They always do that. Like not only in Germany, but in majority of the world, they always try to hide the fact that they're passing some controversial laws. And we all know, every single German citizen know that there is no gender equality type of bullshit. When shit hits the fan, German man will be thrown under the bus. Everybody knows about it. Again, German women have higher status than German men. Migrants have higher status than German men, right? Even though Germany was built by German men, again, emphasizing the fact that German men built Germany. I don't care what feminist bullshit says. I don't care about it. I just say that Germany was built by German men, and they've been treated like shit all along. They've been treated like shit, and nobody cared about German men unless and until shit hit the fan. All right. Again, if I was German, I would have left Germany a long time ago.
Suddenly, a rule that used to apply only in crisis now applies all the time. So it can be justified, as I just said. We are fighting
Send migrants and German feminists to the front lines. All right? Migrants and German feminists need to be thrown on the front lines. Teach them how to handle the gun. All right? So, even German military personnel know that. Even German politicians know that women are useless when it comes to military stuff. Women are fucking useless when it comes to military stuff. And, German women will not protect Germany. And migrants obviously will not protect Germany. But, you know what? German men been treated like shit all along. You know what's crazy? Even though German men are the backbone of society, German man is German man is the core of German society, German government, German system. They're still treated like shit.
against Russia, Ukraine. We need military forces here for Iran. You just cannot leave. Boom. Let's jump straight into what it says here in the new adjusted law. This is freely translated here from Google, so it's not a one-to-one binding legal translation. If you have reached and completed the age of 17, meaning you are 18 years old, you must now obtain authorization from the competent career center of the German Armed Forces if you intend to leave the Federal Republic of Germany for more than 3 months without already meeting the requirements of section blah blah blah.
So, let's discuss from a get-go. Without already meeting the requirements of, right? We all know that in most cases, German men will not meet the requirements. We all know. They always try to complicate stuff, and at the same time, they will, want to plant a seed that there are some opportunities, there are some possibilities that men will not be drafted. But we all know that is a bullshit. That requirements make sure they put those requirements intentionally, and they are intentional. So basically, it plants the seed that you'll still have opportunity not to be drafted. You know what I mean? They give you some ideas and thoughts that you still might get away from getting drafted into armed forces.
Authorization shall be granted for the period during which the male person is not subject to conscription for military services.
And all German male will be subject to getting drafted.
And also here on point 3, it says clearly military services shall end at the end of the year in which the person liable for the military services reaches the age of 45 years. So we are talking here about ages 18 to 45. And what's more interesting for me is now reference to male. Where is all that equality now in terms of gender?
This is what I'm talking about. The equality has been bullshit all along. Equality is non-existent. So basically, women have perks but no obligations. Women got perks but no obligations. German men have all the obligations but no perks. Vice versa.
only about German white male going to the borders and being required to conduct
Where are the migrants?
with this law, and everyone else, the whole world migrating our social systems. Also in terms of gender equality, females are not obliged to fulfill this law, just a side question. But the real question remains, why such a law, something like this now? The system doesn't change randomly. Voting polls, approval ratings of the government being in power is not very high. There are not many people with this disincentivized system and setup here that agrees and approves what the government does, hence also wouldn't justify in going to war, obviously. The risk perception is changing. Government starts preparing for scenarios, tighten a hook on your freedom, on individual decisions. I told you before, if you still think that there's no war, no escalation scenarios here coming to Germany and Europe, you better think again. We are trapped. The system, the politicians are trapped. If you do not opt in voluntarily to execute their wishes, they will do so by force. As the shelf life of the system is coming to an end, we see further upscaling of control upscale. So again, coming and talking about the law, what it actually means, if you're a man between 18 and 45 years and you want to leave Germany now for whatever reason you would like to, for more than 3 months, you must register, you must apply, you must get approval from that military.
If you are a German man watching now, you will get a no approval. You're not getting approval. They just intentionally say that you need to get an approval, knowingly that you will never get an approval.
Competent center. Now officially they say approval will be granted as long as you are not being called up. Point is, the control mechanism now exists. That's what it's about. Registering, making a note, getting approval, whatever you do. And if they say the Russian is standing at our borders, Iranian attacks, whoever is on our borders, and by the way, we have also climate goals hooked into our law, whatever they might be able to blame on that. Who knows what sort of creative justification they will make out of this. Previously, this regulation only applied in crisis. For example, in an event of increased external threat or an actual attack with armed forces against the Federal Republic of Germany. Now, however, paragraph 3 always applies, whether we are in crisis or not. However, it also states that a refusal of the authorization is not provided for. As long as no conscription for military services is scheduled during the period of stay abroad, it will be granted, apparently. In response to an inquiry, a spokesperson for the Federal Ministry of Defense here confirmed that the requirement for authorization no longer applies, only in a crisis situation. Let that sink in. Apparently, they are working also on more specific regulation. Again, we love regulations. We cannot only make it more complex, more regulation, more paperwork to be filled in. They are
By the way, again, it is intentional. It is intentional. Make the system, the whole process, complicated so that people will not follow it and just like accept what it is.
looking into allowing exceptions to the authorization requirement. Yes, in plain sight, maybe just sugarcoating it on the surface. They intended to avoid unnecessary bureaucracy. However, it's there factually laying out in plain sight. Once the law is put into writing, which it is now, it is there and they can say whatever it is. Because also the spokesperson left unanswered the question of consequences if no authorization is obtained. So what happens effectively if no authorization is obtained? The negative answer of this is there will be some lawful legal conclusions. The new Military Service Act was passed in December 2025 now, accordingly under the impression of a growing threat from Russia, as well as transatlantic tensions with the United States. It has been in force now since the beginning of 2026 without big announcement, sneaked in the back door without big public announcements. It states that young men in the future will now be required to undergo military assessment. Before that, they must complete a digital questionnaire. For women, this is optional, again, coming back to gender equality and services. However, there will initially be no mandatory service with weapons. In terms of gender equality and so on, just a side note. Once a system like this is in place, it can and will be tightened, it can and will be adjusted and further activated. Historically speaking, these kind of measures don't appear out of nowhere. They appear when governments start thinking in terms of we need mobilization, we need further preparedness, enforcement, resource control mechanisms. It's the same as with the digital frameworks we're seeing. Think about that. Freedom of movement is one of the basic assumptions people make. You don't question it, you don't think about it until suddenly it comes with conditions. And that's when you realize something bigger might be shifting beneath the surface. And that's that shift we are seeing. Guys, it's not about panic, but yet it is about panics. Once you understand what's happening underneath the...
By the way, if you are German man, leave Germany. No approval, seek no permission. Do not file anything. Just leave your country. Leave your country. In case if somebody asks from state official, in case somebody asks you where you are, whatever the fuck the questions they got, just say that they need to send women and migrants to the front lines. Yeah, say that. In case you being asked, interviewed or whatever the fucking process they get, say that out loud, straight up. Send women and migrants to the front lines. That's it. No, but if you're a German man, just for the record, for your information, German government doesn't give a fuck about you.
Hook that you need to report to get out of the country, to get permission. When a country starts building such a system, legal infrastructure like this, if it tells you deeply one thing, they are preparing not only for uncertainty, they are preparing for mobilization and mass control behavior, hooking you into the system and possibly for scenarios where people are no longer supposed to leave. So you, myself, everyone can die at discretionary decisions on the border, justifying whatever they want. And this is just the next escalation on tightening control we are seeing everywhere. Another wake-up call if you think things are still fine here, war is not coming, escalation scenarios are coming, and everything will be fine as usual here like the last decades. Think again, times are changing widely, the system is shifting. Maybe nothing happens, maybe this is just another layer of regulation, bureaucracy, but maybe it isn't. This one is one of the early signs you only recognize in hindsight. The kind of signal where people later say, it was all there playing out and laid out in sight, I just didn't pay attention. Until they get you on that truck and you find yourself on the combat zone, lying there, potentially dying for something you don't even understand. Because the system is inevitably changing, going down, and up there, they are playing their own game.
All right. Make sure to follow Chris Consulting 4013. Chris Consultant 4013. That's it. I said what I said, and I said what I had to say, and this was my reaction to new laws. Send German women and migrants to the front lines. And if you're German, just know. And if you are European, just know your government doesn't give a fuck about you.